Hello and welcome. Again, just quickly, thank you everyone for joining. I know there are quite a few people from all around the world, which is just crazy, but it's very exciting. And so thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day, and hopefully I can share some knowledge with you. So just quickly, welcome to our Foundations of Design workshop. This is part 2. And as we mentioned, I am Nicole and I'm an art director here at Canva. I work primarily with our enterprise clients. And it's a very exciting space to be in. Today, we'll be covering the second part of our design principles workshop, and we'll be talking about a few key design principles and how to apply them to your designs. But first, a bit of a recap of what do we mean when we talk about design principles? What are they and how can we apply them to your designs? So a lot of different words will pop up when you start to search for design principles. And design principles essentially are the core basic building blocks of any design piece. So they create the foundation to every single piece of communication that you create. And I've said this before, and I'll say it probably every time, just like you can't build a house without solid, good foundations, you can't also build a good piece of design without applying some of these good design principles. So today we'll be taking a deeper look at some of these and how you can apply them to your designs to make them instantly clearer and hopefully more engaging. In this session, we're going to explore the principles of contrast, visual groupings, and negative space. So what's important to remember, when you're self-assessing or critiquing a design, you have to kind of ask why a design is working or why it isn't. So to assess the suitability of a design, we use these design principles. Design principles give you, I guess, the framework to successfully arrange elements within your design. So principles don't work in isolation, but rather together. So let's look closer at this example, how contrast, negative space, and visual groupings are working together and used effectively. So first of all, contrast. You need contrast to provide intentional focus. This emphasis ensures that elements don't blend together, but it can help to think about opposites when you're thinking about contrast. So that's like dark and light, big and small, and then, thick and thin. This design is demonstrating clear contrast through color, scale, and placement. Contrast is in the type, so that's by having a big heading and call out, and then some smaller ones. It's also achieved through the placement of the woman and also these design elements here. And the fact that there is a neutral background and there is a lady with maybe slightly darker hair. These are all combining and working together to provide contrast and create a focal point for your eyes to draw against. Visual groupings refers to using space, color, and stylistic choices to show relationships within your design. So by visually tying items together that relate to each other, you can achieve multiple levels of visual groupings and emphasis, hierarchy. Groupings can relate to text boxes, headings, type, detailing, example, like bullet points or perhaps type spacing, images, and graphic elements such as these leaves. The visual groupings in this design are easily recognized. We've got the type, we've got the lady, and then we've got the graphic elements. So it's really helping us have a clear distinction between all these little, snippets of design, but placed on one design piece of communication. And thirdly, in this, we've got negative space. Negative space is the empty or open space around an object that helps to define it. It is the space between content, margins, type, and graphic elements. Negative space helps your design place emphasis on particular things and gives it structure. Unfortunately, there's no exact science to how much negative space you should apply in a design or how little. But finding the right balance and finding the relationship that works for your piece of design can really help achieve consistency. Negative space helps this design achieve clear information And that's all through hierarchy, balance, visual groupings, and contrast. So let's take a deeper look at how these design principles can be used to improve any design. So firstly, it's important to remember that contrast is there to provide intentional focus. It helps lead your eye to certain places on your design and ensures that elements don't blend together. And two, it's important to think about opposites when you are trying to achieve contrast. As they say, opposites attract. So in this one, it's also important to, remember that contrast doesn't always mean extremes. You can still have contrast and allow your design to have calm, subdued tones. This design shows a very subdued contrast. You can see that large type is easy to read. However, the smaller and thinner type is starting to blend in just a little bit. So you might consider that you might make this type a little bit darker. But overall, it is still a beautiful piece of design and it's used contrast quite well. In this particular design, through the type sizes, so there's 3 different type sizes, and then also with color. So having white, yellow, and black. Now this leads us to our first exercise, which is the contrast exercise. This is a poster, and it's for a football team tryout, and we are going to try and think of the design principles that we've just learnt about, and in particular, contrast in this one. We've got this, background, which is a dark green. We've got the light green, which is an element of a football space. And then we've got some type here and a little bit of more information about when these tryouts might be. So I'm going to think about how I'm going to apply what I've just thought about and learnt about. So overall, I quite like the dark background. I think that's helping us with a nice dark contrast. And I'm going to paste this in. Now, I think that this is working quite well. However, I do think that the contrast is a little bit too strong. This is a level of detail that could be a bit more subdued. So I'm going to head up to our panel at the top, and there is a little transparency box that you can click on, and you can actually control, you can either slide down and control it manually like that, or if you prefer, you can write in a particular amount of opacity that you'd like. So I'm going to try 50% to begin with. It's still quite strong, so I might just drag that down and see what I like. So I might set it at about 30. That feels good. So now what's important I need people to recognize is the type. So I'm going to copy my football team tryouts and paste that here. Now I'm going to increase the size by just dragging the corner and make sure that my heading is quite large. We want to make sure that people can see this very clearly and read what the message is super quickly to see if they're interested. Football team tryouts. Now that contrast is working quite well as well. The yellow against the green feels very Australian, but it also is a great contrast of colours. And then the football team tryouts, the text, it's sitting in a black, and that's also quite easy to read for the viewer. I'm copying and pasting just the additional text here. I'm going to increase the size. I might actually, these are currently grouped, and if you ever see this in our templates, you can simply ungroup by right-clicking and clicking ungroup. I'm going to change the type alignment by going up to the top panel and clicking on the type paragraph alignment tool. I'm also going to, make this a bit bolder. I think I want people to make sure that they can read this information and not lose it. And in order to do that, I want to make sure that it's nice and bold. Now, I think I might do the same with the information about the field, click left alignment as well. I'm just going to place that there. And look, I think that's pretty good for a few minutes of design. and applying some of those principles, I've now focused on making sure that I've got some contrast, but so that the elements are not competing with each other. I've also got a little bit of negative space to make sure that the attention is brought to the call out, which is football team try-outs and then the information. And overall, I'm quite happy with that. Moving on. Visual groupings uses space, color, and stylistic choices to show relationships within your design. By visually tying together elements that relate to each other, you can achieve multiple levels of emphasis. So just like that in that example before, we made sure that we kept the heading all close together, treated the same, and then the secondary information below it also treated the same. And visual groupings strengthen the design by creating cohesion. So type is a great example of visual groupings. Not only is the type grouped together in this example, but it's also grouped logically and in bite-sized pieces. You can also group all your pieces of information through color. And here we've taken pieces from the folder, from her shirt, and it's all tied together, and even with the logo here and the type. It's all nicely visually grouped through color. And thirdly, by grouping bunches of smaller elements together through visual groupings, you can achieve balance. See how the type on the right-hand side is tied together and is kind of counterbalancing the woman and what she's wearing and the colors that you can see in the photo. So all of these are nice and visually grouped, but they're also balancing each other out. Here's another example of visual groupings that can help you achieve balance. And these are all grouped together to visually help your eye draw down the design. So let's take a look at this design. There are 3 distinctive groupings which helps provide clarity. By keeping things grouped, the shop button is also kept super clear. The color also complements the visual feeling and the subdued tones throughout. The overall application of this color is actually a great way to visually show you and create a calm sense of calmness. Then keeping the heading to the left near the arms helps draw down your attention to that. And then thirdly, having some of the grouped text, it all helps to draw your eye around this piece of design. So we're moving on to exercise number 2. I'm going to apply some of the visual groupings and negative space, principles that we've learned to this particular design. So I'm just going to zoom in. So we've got some lines here. We've got some, the previous work history. We've got the university and academic background. We've got some information about yourself, some accomplishments, and some contact details. It's important to remember that with any resume, you want it to be super clear and make sure that the person who is receiving and reading your resume knows exactly where and how to contact you and how to, effectively and quickly go through your resume. So, first of all, what's super important is your name. I'm going to bring that to the top. I've got his position written here. He's a senior copywriter. Now it's amazing in Canva. We have these preset margins that really help to align your elements. So I'm going to sit that at the top of my margin, which also helps to have some nice sense of negative space already happening. Now I'm going to get another element. I'm going to get a line element. You can actually press L and a line will pop up. So that's a nice little keyboard shortcut that I love to use. You can also adjust your line weight by clicking on the 3 that says weight, and you can make it thicker or thinner. I'm going to go and change this to 3, a little bit thinner. Now I'm just going to drag that in. So now I'm starting to create a little bit of a section. Now I think what's most important at the top here is I'm actually going to have a little bit about who I am. We're going to ungroup my elements here. I'm going to delete the heading and I'm going to increase the size of this. I want people to know who I am very quickly in one sentence. So I'm just going to increase the size. And I'm also going to match this color to the red, to match to senior copywriter. Now, we are going to start with, going to drag these two, copy, and paste them onto my design here. Now, we're going to have employment history and my academic background. Now, I copy all these, paste them here. So, employment history, senior copywriter. Previously, I was a junior copywriter here. I love how Canva just knows exactly what I want to align things to. Makes it a lot easier. So by visually grouping these at the moment, I don't need to come in here and draw a line, but we can see that I'm using columns to help group certain aspects of my design here. And that's really helping and will help the reader carry my eye and visually know where I can find the information that I need. But I'm also going to copy this line and drag it down here. And that's essentially saying that's the end of that section. I've grouped all the information about my employment history, my academic background, and now I'm going to start a new section, which is going to be my contact details. Now you might want to have your contact details and then some accomplishments. Again, I'm just following the same structure that I did and the same columns, but just going down and I'm putting in new information. Now, on your left-hand side of Canva, for those of you that don't know, we have, I guess, a lot of different things that you can click out, such as elements, photos, you can change your text, styles, and what I'm looking for in this particular instance is photos. Now, I'm going to look for a photo of Takiro. I've just picked any photo here, but you can also search by saying man or woman, and click any one that you like. But for the instance of this, there we go. And I think rather than having it sit in a square, I actually want my photo to be in a circle. So the great thing with Canva is you can go to elements and there's something called frames. Now this helps your image sit within a certain shape. And in this instance, I'm going to click circle. And that's going to pop up right there. And it's ready for a photo. And the great thing I can do here is I can drag my photo on top and I've got a nice photo display picture here. I'm going to close my tab, and at the moment I've got some more information that I can keep adding to, but for now I'm really happy with that. I've got a nice heading, I've got my lines that are helping create those different sections and groups. I've got a nice introduction about who this copywriter is. And then I've got my employment history, my academic background in columns. And then it's followed by contact details and some accomplishments. So overall, I'm pretty happy with that. So let's talk about negative space, which I guess it is a bit of a popular topic and it is very hard to understand what the correct science is behind it. But I guess it's always dependent on the piece of communication that you're doing. But overall, number one, what is negative space? It's the empty or open space around your object that defines it or helps to define it. Two, it helps your design emphasize visual groupings and hierarchy. And thirdly, it gives structure and allows elements in your design room to breathe. And that's most important to remember. When something feels or looks a bit crowded, can you add any negative space to allow it, that information that you're trying to get across room to breathe? So we'll take a look at some examples. And I know we've brought this one up before, but it's a really good use and in showing negative space and how negative space can allow for clear visual groupings and to give your eyes different focal points. And that's through by all the visual groupings, grouping things together, making sure we're using limited amount of colors, so not having too many, just limiting it to 3 in this case. We've got the red, the black, and the white. In this one, we've got negative space. It allows the viewer to pause on important information. It's very intentional. We've got that also contrast. We've got the yellow and the black. That's quite a strong contrast. Then we've got the nice negative space around this information here, 30% of everything, to allow for your eye to read that really clearly and to feel like there's room to breathe. So there's actually a lot going on in this example. It's also done very well in the sense that I still know what I'm meant to read and what's important. So it's quite a balance of all those little things we've been talking about. In this, this is a more subdued example, and we've got a lovely negative space distributed throughout the whole design. It's extremely balanced as well. We've got also these little bits of information on the side and as well at the top and the bottom. Everything is actually extremely, I guess, balanced in the sense that it's all opposites. And in this one, we have complementary colours of the browns. So we've got a nice tanned colour, we've got a nice white little border, and then we've got the darker tanned colour for the information to make it easier to read. Now this leads me to my third and final exercise for today, and this one is all focused on negative space. This is a business card for an occupational therapist, and we've just chucked on here a few of the different design elements in her brand and how we're going to, I guess, digest all this and see how we can play with it to create a business card. We've got pattern up here. We've got these nice little organic shapes and different elements that are composed to make this pattern, and then we've got her name and a bit of the information we need, an email address and contact details. So to begin with, I think I'm going to get this pattern, I'm going to copy it and to go to this page, and I'm going to increase it. I think we can try and incorporate this as a bit of a background. There we go, it's a nice background element there. Now, in order to actually be able to read the information that I want on this business card, I'm going to copy this nice colour. It's a lovely kind of grey blue colour, and I'm going to use the margins that are on here, and that's going to be my, I guess, the space that I write all my content in. So I'm still allowing myself to have that nice pattern and the colours, all the different colours of the brand come through, but it's more of as a graphic treatment, and it's not going to interfere with the important information on which will be the contact details and my name. Now, we can't read this information up here, so I'm going to change the colours. So I'm going to ungroup these elements. I'm going to change this to white. It's going to tie in nicely with the little snippets of white we see in the pattern in the background. I'm going to go and get the nice line. I'm going to put that underneath for now. Get this information in here. And again, we can't read it, so I'm just going to change that to white. Now, we're starting to see that we've got the name, the occupation, and some contact details, and it's starting to kind of feel like we're going to make sure that we group the right elements all together on this particular piece of communication. So I'm going to get the name and group that, and I might even make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to drag that line up, and that's going to be a visual way to help us define and separate those elements. And here we've got the details, and I'm going to keep the email address in this peach colour because that's how I want people to primarily contact me. It's a nice visual cue. And here we go. I'm going to try and incorporate some of these nice shapes. So this is a nice element that we are going to change up in there. There we go, I'm going to change. This is a perfect example of the colours that I am able to change. So it is an SVG element, and I'm going to change simply by clicking the colour that you want to change. There we go. I'm going to leave the pinks and the peaches as they were. I'm just going to play around and try and incorporate this. You can rotate any shape or element by looking out for this little rotation symbol. I'm going to actually try and line that up with a nice little bit of shape. I can see pattern coming through. We still have negative space. We're still incorporating the nice pattern, and we're still visually grouping certain elements together to help with the hierarchy. And that's the design for that. So this image is actually in, you can find it in the Canva library. And the way to find that, we'll just click, so it's called Blooming Abstract Pattern. So if you ever click an element in Canva and you're wondering, actually, where did I find that? Like, what words did I search for? A great little one is you can always click on the little I info button, and that will pop up with something that it was called, or some key search words. So seamless, modern design, element, pattern. And you can also click, this is one of my favorite features, it's see more like this, and you can even add it to a folder, personal folder. So at the moment it's saying that they can't find any more similar to this, but you can also go and click into the person who created it and see what other certain aspects they might have. So you might like that, nice circle, or this shape. So these are all certain ones done by this creator. So that's a nice little easy way to find out where your different patterns, or elements that you found. It's also applicable to photos. So if you find a photo, just always look out for that little I info button. So if we were going to print this out, I would make sure I go to File and show Print Bleed, because in any type of print, when you send a bit of artwork to print, they'll always ask for bleed. And that's because when it gets to the printer, they'll print it out, but they'll, I guess, to make sure that all your edges are beautifully cut straight, they usually use particular machines, and they'll cut out your design for you. So by clicking Show Print Bleed, we can see that this actually would not print very well at the moment. The printer would probably send it back to me. So simply, I just need to make sure that I ensure that my pattern goes to those all corners, and that there's no nothing like it was just a moment ago, where it was just a lot of white. I'll just undo so you can see. So here, this would actually interfere. This is the fact that I have not enlarged my background pattern to cover the print bleed. So I'm just going to go forward. So just say now we are happy, and this is how we're going to print it with the CMYK colors. When I go to download through Canva, we've got a few options when you go to download, and PDF print will pop up. You can click here for crop marks and bleed, so that will make sure that this has the nice little crop marks that your printer needs, and color space. So there is two options here. For print, you will click CMYK, and then you click download, and your PDF will download, and then it's ready to send to the printer. So that's, Canva has this inbuilt, I guess, way to change the colors that you're working with to CMYK. And then it's ready, and I can send it to my printer. So this is your, I guess, the original size of the document. I'll just, it helps to turn it off and on. So show print bleed, and that's what will get cut off and what it's inside. So sometimes it's easier to start with not showing your print bleed, so you just know exactly what size you're working with. And then at the end, you can always go show print bleed, and then manipulate the background or the color to make sure that it includes all the corners and all the little bits that you need. So CMYK is cyan, magenta, yellow and black, and that is specific for printing. And RGB are all the colors you normally see on web. So they're for digital output. So they have different, I guess, gamuts in color, and things that there are more colors on screen because there are different mixes, and it's just brighter. And then when you go to print something, we've got, I guess, only 4 colors we mix all together to make different colors so you can print your design. So it gets quite technical, but that's your most simplest way to understand it. One is for web and one is for print. Yeah, it's important to know sometimes that not all your colors will come out the exact same that you're viewing on screen, but your printer will always, if you're not comfortable or you don't know, just talk to your printer. They're more than happy to help and help explain the difference. So just important to remember, if you're seeing something online, it's probably not going to come out exactly the same color, just because we're working with different colors and colorways. So we are at the end, we're wrapping up, and I guess to just remind a few of the things that we've learned. You need contrast in your designs so that everything feels intentional, and things don't just blur together and they don't just mix in. And that can be quite vivid and strong, or you can do softer ones like on this page here. Two, visual groupings are so essential in your design. And that can be done through space, it can be color, it can be through stylistic choices, and it really helps to show and differentiate and allow your viewer to digest the information at the way they need to. And thirdly, negative space is just as important, and as it allows all your elements in your design to have room to breathe and to own the page, I guess. So yes, that's my last little bit of wisdom. And that's all for today. Thank you so much, everyone. It was great. Bye, everyone.